Music. Music, music, music. It's worse than you think. Our brains, especially at an early age, are like a sponge. We absorb absolutely everything that comes into our mind. All the stimulus, we're all just perceiving things to try and get a better sense of our environment around us to learn to survive. As children, that's all we do. As adults as well, that's all we do. That's what we do for our entire lives, just mostly in childhood. Now, in stimulation, our modern world is filled with overstimulation from social media, video games, everything like that, pornography as well. We have overstimulation, and one aspect that I didn't mention in that list of overstimulated content would be music, especially modern day music that has that's all these rappers that honestly just talk about rather degenerate subjects, and that's putting it nicely. The message of this is that music, you need to be very, very careful with what you listen to. Because like I said, your brain is a sponge. Listening to words, that's literally the same thing as affirmations in your head. Me telling myself that, oh, I believe in myself, is the exact same thing as listening to a song that's talking about how I don't. Telling myself that I believe in myself and that I can do this is the exact same thing as listening to a degenerate rapper talking about, yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? We're talking about drugs, alcoholism, casual sex, hookups, and everything like that. The music you listen to, you become more like that person. Don't BS yourself here. It's like what you listen to is just has such a massive influence on the character of who you are. And when you listen to these degenerate, evil, Satan's music, yeah, I'm getting extreme here. When it's music advocating for things that are of the world and not God's. Advocating for things like casual sex, drugs, alcoholism, murder, gangs. These things are real. It is reality. But that doesn't mean that these things should be glorified. Because these things, acting in drugs, we know that leads to Satan. We know it's of Satan. Alcoholism, we know that's of Satan because it leads to a soulless existence. We know that casual sex and hookups in modern hookup culture is also of Satan because it leads to nowhere. It leads to unfulfillment and unfulfilling relationships long term. So why are we listening to music that positively affirms that behavior? Because make no mistake, you are greatly influenced by it more than you realize. You're listening to affirmations in your head that glorify behavior that glorifies sinful behavior. Literally. The glorification of sin is essentially what 99% of modern hip-hop rap is about. And most people are listening to modern hip-hop and rap. Maybe this is why hookup culture is a thing. Maybe this is why drugs and alcoholism is still such a problem. Maybe that's why gangs is also such a problem too. Probably because we're affirming ourselves that these things are actually positive. We're reinforcing these behaviors in our brains every single day. Music changes your self-image because there's those words repeating in the back of your mind. What your brain absorbs, and you listen to it enough, you start to believe it. What the brain perceives over time becomes a reality if it's constantly exposed to the same stimuli. You must be cautious. Do not listen to music that glorifies sin, that will lead you down a path that's away from God's love. So that means don't listen to these degenerate modern rappers. That means don't listen to other kinds of music that can be straight up evil, like, really, really heavy metal. That honestly sometimes can actually get satanic, fun fact. This is my side of the experience. I've never listened to hip hop, rap, and everything like that. I'm so grateful that I haven't. I've mostly been on the side of like really, really heavy metal that had like this negative defeatist mindset connotation. And this is just as bad, if not worse. And I'm not trying to exclude genres here. The overall message I'm saying is that the words of these songs that you listen to, they drastically influence you. So just make sure that you're picking the right stuff to listen to. Sounds simple, right? Like, obviously, don't listen to some super depressing heavy metal that's going to turn your self-image into someone that's depressed. Don't listen to a hip-hop song that talks about casual sex and make your self-image into someone that is into casual sex and has that W-Riz whatever. Don't affirm yourself things that you're not. Don't affirm yourself things that you don't want to be. That's the danger of listening to these songs, especially as a follower of Christ. You have to be so cautious. You have to be cautious because this music is everywhere. You can't avoid it. So the best thing you can do is just equip yourself with the wisdom. And that's the purpose of this video, for you taking it from someone that has been through it, done it, and realized its dangers and the problems with it. You have to be very, very cautious of what music you listen to. Because even something that is relatable, like the songs that we think are relatable, that's going through, like the songs about going through breakups, hard times, depression, anxiety, things like that. It can be therapeutic, yes, fair enough. But is it always a good thing to be listening to that kind of music long term? And the answer to that is no. And the reason why is because every time you repeat those words in your mind, you affirm yourself as someone that is going through those struggles, even when you may not be. So yes, I'm going to listen to like this heartfelt song about a heartbreak, for example, because I just went through a heartbreak and it's therapeutic because I can relate to the message of the music. And it helps me. If it helps me get over it, fine, that's awesome, great. But now, let's fast forward a couple months after this, and I'm already over it. Yeah, I'm still listening to the same song. And it's reaffirming the pains and the hard times that I experienced during that heartbreak. Is that really a positive thing? Is it really a positive thing to put my self-image back into this state of absolute tragedy where I thought everything was just going downhill, that everything was falling apart around me? Is that always a good self-image to have in life? This mindset where things are crumbling all around you, that you're the victim of all of this. Is that always the best thing to have long term? And again, I'm not saying to exclude these kinds of music that can be therapeutic. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that these things aren't probably the best to be allowed to influence your self-image long term, because it just reaffirms the tragedies and the hard times of the past that held you down. We don't want to be held down by our past. Our past doesn't define us. What we do now defines us. The decisions we make today, our relationship and our devotion to Christ now defines us. We're not judged by God by our works, good or bad. It's just about whether God knows us, whether our hearts are opened up to His love. Don't open your heart up to music that isn't good if you don't open up your heart to the devil. Because every single time you open yourself up to the devil's works, every time you play video games, every time you scroll on social media, every time you relapse on NoFap, every time you eat that junk food, every time you listen to that song about some degenerate rapper, and these music videos too especially, Satan. Every time you do these things, you chip away a little bit at your own soul. Just bit by bit by bit. But you don't notice it. You don't notice that when you're partaking in casual sex, the dopamine rush is so high because it's instant gratification. It's dopamine rush now and then pain later. But in reality, the pain is all throughout. This dopamine rush right here, that spike, just masks it. It's just the seeking of pleasure. It's empty, it's hollow, it means nothing. And you know this. You know deep, deep down that you don't want to live that kind of life that the media and that Satan is promoting to you through these songs. So why are you reaffirming that message to yourself that you are this way? You have to be careful. You have to be so vigilant. And if you actually want something that reaffirms a positive message, I'd recommend listening to instrumental music. Instrumental music doesn't have any lyrics, so it doesn't have that same problem. It could be any kind of instrumentals, like, classical, maybe it's like drill, or maybe it's like some hardstyle, or maybe it's metal too, like a metal instrumental. If not, you can listen to things like Christian rap, Christian metal as well. Those are basically the only two things that you can listen to, plus obviously, worship as well, and maybe some like instrumental lo-fi, for example. That's it. Because 99% of music these days is infected with Satan's influence. And following Christ requires sacrifices that you don't want to make. It requires sacrifices that Satan doesn't want you to make, that your monkey brain doesn't want you to make. You're probably going to convince yourself that listening to these songs is okay. It's not. Never. I don't care how hard your brain is arguing with you right now. It is not okay to reaffirm yourself that you're a sinner. That should not be our self-image. Because as followers, we're pursuing righteousness. We don't want to bound ourselves to sin by reaffirming that we are this way, that we voluntarily choose to act out in sin. We don't want to reaffirm that message to ourselves because we're pursuing a better path, a more righteous path through Jesus Christ. Be vigilant. Avoid basically every kind of music these days, except for Christian rap, select few of Christian metal, worship, and some instrumental lo-fi or whatever. That's literally it. I hope you found value in this. My name's Evan Cole. I'm just some kid who's in love with Jesus, and I hope that me sharing a little bit about the gospel to help you on your goals towards self-improvement through Christ is actually helping. But for now, remember, keep working hard, stay blessed, and I'm doing coaching calls now, so link is in the description of my channel, and Jesus loves you. Take care.